Well, hello everyone. I have completed my water fast, but I'm going to be very, very honest with you. I had intended to do a 72-hour water fast, which I've done multiple times, which I shared in the last video, but I actually cut this one short. I cut it after about 50 hours. And the reason I cut it short is because I was feeling extremely lethargic, really tired, a little lightheaded, and I knew these were all signs that my body was like, something's off. It's time to introduce food. So I listened, I learned, and I broke the fast with a delicious avocado, a healthy fat. And then about like an hour later, I had kefir. You always want to give prebiotics, probiotics, healthy fat. And then a little bit later, I had a hard-boiled egg, and it's been a full couple of days, 2 days later since I broke the fast. I feel amazing. I always feel amazing after I do a water fast. There's something about cleansing the body. Like I've said, I always do a water fast with intention. I always have a very clear and specific sort of reason that I'm doing it. It could just be health, but for me, I always ask a higher question, and I receive the answers. So I'll give you an example of one of the questions that I asked, and actually what manifested after I did a 3-day water fast in the beginning of this year, because it was fantastic. And I realized the last video might be slightly triggering for some people, because I spoke about one of my greatest fears was running out of money, and how instead of asking to borrow money, I chose to accept where I was and say, okay, well then I'm gonna fast because I don't have the money to pay for food. And so by doing that, a lot really came up for me. But what was so fascinating for me, and I talk about it in my last video, which I'll link, is that it gave me the biggest lesson that I've really had so far in the 3 years of my surrender experiment. And side note, YouTube actually served up to me this video of somebody else saying, I surrendered for a year and this is what happened. It transformed my life. And this is very typical. Now, what's interesting with this particular person, I know everybody is different, but this person is really, really selling. He's a life coach. Come work with me. Come be a part of my community. So his angle on what he experienced is pretty much all positive. And so I realized what I'm doing, and there's a reason I'm being so transparent and so honest, is because obviously this is really who I am. Yes, I also have a coaching business. I also do soul readings, and you can feel free to book a soul reading with me, or if you want to work with me, great. But I'm not selling in any way when I do these videos. I'm really just sharing and expressing my journey. And the reason I feel so called to do it in this way, where I do no editing, it's all just stream of consciousness, is because I do find that people who are in the business of, like, you know, being a spiritual healer and that kind of thing, they just spin everything to get you to work with them. And I just want to be real. I've let go. Part of this whole surrender experiment is letting go of even the idea that I'm a soul guide or a life coach. I really believe that these are things that my small mind, my identity, thought, okay, I'm going to now do this other thing, because so many people would approach me as a yoga teacher, because that's what I was prior to doing this. And it just sort of became something that felt very like an easy transition. And then the whole soul reading people's souls, that was sort of a surprise. And that also just kind of came through because I did, I've spoke about this before, maybe not on this channel, but just a little bit about that. I really just wanted to connect to my higher guidance clearer. I wanted to trust it more. So during the pandemic, I actually found this amazing woman who is a medium and spiritual teacher, and she really, her whole vibe is what resonated with me. I can put her details below. I took her psychic bootcamp course, never thinking I'm not psychic, right? I just want to understand and listen to my own higher voice. So I did her course, and in the process of that, we had to practice on people we didn't know. And lo and behold, because I have such an understanding of spirituality and just how to translate information, because I've been such a student of personal growth, and because of my own personal journey, that people started to want to do readings with me. And then it just kind of opened me up. And then I ended up doing 3 of her courses. Now I also do belief clearing. So I do all this stuff. But my point being is I've let go of the attachment that that's who I am and what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. There's a quote that Dr. Joe Dispenza says all the time, and I'm a huge fan of his work, which is, we have to let go of the very thing we've used our whole lives to get what we want in order for something greater to occur. And I'm in it for that something greater. That's something that I can't even possibly know what it could be, but I know the universe can yield to me the easier path, the quicker path, the thing that would just light me up in this moment. And I can't possibly know what that is, because our small little minds don't have access to infinite possibilities. The first time I experienced what that infinite possibilities and how the universe can yield to me was during the pandemic. I was doing all of this work, and I remember I was reading this book, and I had just started my life coaching business, and I was getting kind of turned off by the way everybody was presenting themselves online, and specifically in Instagram. It just felt like the same carbon copy of the same message, and I was just like, that's not authentic to me. I don't want to have to keep posting all these videos on Instagram and trying to get people to work with me and keep sharing all this wisdom. It just felt so against who I really am. I just wanted to be myself. That's it. I was like, why can't I just be myself? And that's my wealth. That's sort of what I was thinking, right? So in that moment, I had this question. I put the book down, and I was like, I know there's an easier way that has nothing to do with me posting a bunch of videos on Instagram to get clients. And then as soon as I had that thought, right after, I heard a ding on my phone. That ding was somebody found me on Instagram. A casting agent or a casting director, whatever, said, hey, are you interested and available to do this new game show that we're producing here? It's called something to do with your intuition. You had to basically, Game of Talents or something like that. You had to basically look at somebody and then ask yourself, of all these choices of what you think they would do, you have to guess what their real job is, right? So a lot of it is based on your intuition, and you can win a life-changing amount of money. And I was like, sure, I'll do it. She found me on Instagram. I didn't even have 1,000, sorry, it's loud. I didn't even have 1,000 followers yet, right? And I was like, okay. At first I thought it was fake, because don't you always think these things are fake? But it turns out it was real. So I'll tell you in a moment what happened with that. The second thing that happened, I got a message from a friend-ish, right? Kind of an acquaintance. She was like, listen, I just want to say that she was like a VP of programming or something, or acquisitions for a digital TV, film kind of studio, right? And she was like, listen, I have a friend, they're just starting this new platform, and it's all about personal growth, and they're looking for new shows. And I thought to myself, you deserve your own show. And she was coming up with a name. She's like, I don't know, it could be something like Charlene Saves the World. Can you write something up, a little proposal on, what you do with your coaching, how your fearless actions and da-da-da-da, And I was like, sure, so there was that. Then I get another thing on Instagram that they're like, hey, we're doing a whole magazine on the top 20 entrepreneurs in LA. Would you be interested? Now I really thought that was fake, because I'm like, you get that kind of stuff a lot on Instagram. But I was like, well, I'll just apply, whatever. I'll just say, okay, sure. Meanwhile, I was like a life coach for a hot 5 minutes. That's what I think is so funny. Anyways, this is when I began, right, during the pandemic. So the third thing was, that very same day, I go to have lunch in Santa Monica. at this really nice place called Cafe Gratitude. And I'm sitting there before I'm about to order. These two guys come over to the table next to me and they're like, hey, did you already pay your bill? They're like, yeah, we already paid. Okay, then they come over to me and they're like, have you already paid? I'm like, no, I didn't even order yet. He's like, we'll take care of your bill if you just be a part of this little PSA thing for this fantasy football thing. And I was like, okay, this is what I had to do. We're gonna take all this cash. He took out a wad of cash and then he's like, now we're gonna throw the bills on your table and you just have to react like as if all of it is yours. I was like, what? Okay, can it be all mine? Can I keep the money, you know? Meanwhile, he's like, oh, well, we'll take care of your bill here. I'm like, okay. So they kept throwing all this money down. The guy comes over, he's filming this whole thing. I mean, it made no sense, you guys. It made no sense, but all this money started to flow. And I remember going, wow, all of this came through because I had that one thought. That one thought. I know there's another way. And the universe is like, yeah, we've got a million ways, infinite possibilities that you can have wealth, get your own show, do whatever the hell you want, and it has nothing to do with shrinking yourself, putting yourself in a box, and becoming just like everybody else on Instagram. It's about staying authentic. It's about being you and trusting it all works out. So that experience, it changed the game for me. Because so what ended up happening, the casting director for the TV show, I think it was called Game of Talents or something like that. Me and my friend, because they wanted a friend to do it with you, me and my friend auditioned. We ended up getting to the final stage and the whole thing kind of fell apart because there was like another lockdown. They ended up not shooting the show. But that experience, really, it changed the game for me. I was like, wow, like there's that's something greater that I could have never in my small little mind conjured up. It was just a perfect like storm of, or really just perfect clarity of like consistently connecting to my higher self. There was no contrast within. It was just an honest intention, and that's what the universe supplied. So that had always been in the back of my mind. And then of course, you know, I moved to Paris, and that's sort of why I got this crazy idea, like, what if I just let go of my plan, mine being the identity, and really allowed the universe to yield to me what is truly right for me. I just have to get out of the way, the identity, which is why, sorry, it's loud. So that is the true intention and the real, aside from like, I've had so many experiences like this when I did my fearless journey at 40. I believe I spoke about it in another video. I'll find it and post it. Anyways, so getting back to that something greater. I was watching this guy and he's sharing something that's very kind of, in my view, salesy, because he's just really talking about the positive. Everything is like anecdotal. It's not really being present. I don't really hear any very specific higher lessons learned. It's just kind of like somewhat surfacey. And so for me, I'm just being real. I think you can tell that through all my videos. So why the last video I spoke about how I ended up fasting, and that was the introduction of all the benefits of fasting and how I've done it now 4 times. And the thing that I really appreciate about it is that there's always something different, a new takeaway that I get from it. It's still really fresh in terms of what this current one is about, but there was still more contrast. And I feel like there's a belief, and this is why I gave the example of like all that manifested. I feel like there has been a belief that I can only have one thing, that I can't have many things. Meaning, what came up for me is the ego is trying to negotiate. If something like this came through, then all these other things can't come through. And I think the universe is really trying to say, like, we're really here to let you clear all of that, that all of it can come through, that there's no divine order. Like, you can have it all. That's been the biggest message. And so the contrast that was coming up this time around during the fast that I did was the ego saying you can't have it all. And so that was really fascinating and more nuanced than before. So I want to share another really fun manifestation that came through. Not only fun, but just like, again, miraculous, that I could have never, my small little mind could have never come up with this solution. So I don't know why I'm hesitant to talk about this, because my visa was set to expire in February of 2025. And part of my attachment to the visa that I have is you have to prove you have a certain amount of money to live here. Now, I've had quite a year, right? I had to give up my apartment. I mean, I chose to give it up, but this is all about surrender, acceptance, understanding fully that this is part of my journey, that I have to live through enough contrast in order to not give it power anymore. You see, when we fear something, we give all of our power to it. So then you have no power to actually create with. So a lot of times our biggest fears sometimes have to play out in order for us to understand that we'll be okay. That not only that we will thrive. And I think for me, what letting go of my apartment and living through so many of those moments where I didn't have money, negative balances, all those things, it showed me how eventually you get so desensitized that you're like, I'm gonna be fine. Like, this is just temporary. I know that abundance is within me and all around me, and yeah, this is just temporary. And so you just keep getting a deeper trust muscle, basically. But it's intense, because if you've never lived through something like that before, this is the other piece. Experiment. We are all so different. We all have very different belief systems, a very different curriculum, a soul curriculum in terms of what we came to learn. So experiment. Feel free to, I'm going to be really strict in this area, but then I'm going to take it back in this area, and then I'm going to try this. I mean, that's what I've been doing this whole time, So anyways, February of 2025, I was supposed to, that was the end of my visa. I was nervous about it, but kind of like, you know what, I have been taken care of. And if I don't get the visa, if nothing comes through, and what I was thinking that had to come through was money, because that was the only way that I could stay on this visa. I said, if nothing comes through, it's okay. I have lived in Paris for 2.5 years, or I guess it would have been 3 years, and what a dream. And it's okay if I have to go back, I go back, even if it's for a short time until something else. But I really had made peace with, if I have to leave, it's okay. I mean, I would be sad, of course, but I knew it wouldn't be the end of the story, Now, I had bouts of getting really sad. I had bouts of like, I don't know what I'm going to do, blah, 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 right? Another part of this is that when you renew for the visa, you have to go online, you have to pay for insurance, you have to do all these things. I did nothing, because I figured, so in February, this is what's interesting. You have to go and pick up your residence card, and mine was being pushed back, but I had this instinct that this is actually a good thing, right? So I got a message finally that my residence card was ready to be picked up February 7th or something, a week before it was set to expire, which sounds so funny. But when you pick it up, you have to go to the prefecture. You have to pay for the tax. This is all for the previous year, right? I did nothing to continue to stay because I didn't have the funds to prove that I could stay. So I do a 3-day water fast in the beginning of the year. I wanted clarity. I felt conflicted, all these things. By the 3rd day, I want to say that morning, I'll never forget how I felt. I felt so connected to my higher self, to my soul. It was like I had this thought come through, which was like, There's no moment more worthy of my presence than this one I'm in right now. There's no moment, not a future moment, not, when this or when that. There's no moment more worthy of my full presence than this one right now. And all I can say was it was just like I was so clear. Like the ego was gone and I was just in the soul voice. And so I remember I was looking into different workaways at the moment, and there was one that sparked my interest, and it was in February, around the time that I was going to have to pick up the residence card for the visa. And I thought in that moment, oh, that's a bummer. I really would like to go to this one, to this workaway. Just as I had that thought, I get a ding on my phone. I got a text message from the prefecture saying, pick up your residence card next week. That was the date. So the whole thing got sped up, and I was like, that's weird. Again, thought, manifestation. Now this happens, like I just shared, a lot of times when you are really connected. This is how it works. A thought actually can bring a manifestation. So when that happened, I was like, oh, I didn't actually in the moment think it was like a good thing. I was a little nervous because I had to pay the tax, and I knew if I paid the tax, I would only have X amount of dollars left. And so I was like, okay, whatever, I'll figure it out. And then the other thing that was interesting was I was carrying this huge suitcase that it just broke. I was like, I just want to get a new suitcase, but I didn't have the money to buy a new one. But that was kind of a medium size because I've been traveling around cat sitting and whatever. I don't want to lug a huge suitcase. So I had the ding, my appointment is sped up. Then I go outside to take a walk. Guess what I see on my walk? The exact size suitcase that I was looking to buy, somebody was throwing out. And I was like, that's weird / a miracle, right? So I take the suitcase and I was like, this is incredible. So I have the suitcase now. Anyway, so I thought, okay, that's cool. But I didn't really make any of the connections. I mean, I did think that's really crazy, but okay, thank you for the suitcase. So the next week I go to the prefecture. Now again, I'm still like high off of this feeling around, I'm really starting to understand it's the emotional state. I mean, I get it, but any sort of future version of you that you want really is about connecting to that emotional state in the now. When you do that now, which is why they say feeling is everything, feeling is vibration. When you do it in the now, that trickles and that sends the message out, and that's how manifestation kind of comes, right? So I was in this high vibe state. I had made the decision to get off Instagram. That was the other thing I heard, like, don't do anything that you think you should. Like, just let it all go. So I was like, ugh, I don't like Instagram, blah, blah, blah. I'm just only going to do the things I want to do, So I go to pick up my visa at the prefecture, and I was just in such a high vibe state because I let go of Instagram, and I remember being there, like, feeling so much gratitude that here I am picking up this visa, and it's okay. I've been here 3 years, and I'll, if something else will come up. I'm just, in this beautiful state. I go to pick up my card, and I asked the guy, because the biggest question I had was, when it expires, can I just like go back to London and then come back for another 90 days? Because you have this Schengen visa where you can stay in the UK or you can stay in the EU for up to 90 days. So I wanted some sort of like, can I just leave and then come back and then stay for 9 days? That gives me a little bit longer, right? So I tried to ask him this question, and he looked at me kind of sideways, and then he looked at the card. He's like, but your card expires December of 2025. And I was like, I'm sorry. What did you just say? He's like, yeah, your card expires December 12th, 2025. This was January. So I basically got almost a whole year of visa for free. I was like, and then I was like, oh, I was trying not to make such a big deal about it, because I was like, I don't know, there's something wrong. I'm like, oh, well, right, of course, yeah, no, it expires December. So I take the card, and I was just like standing outside. I couldn't believe it. I was like, wow, like the miraculous came through. I completely let it go. I surrendered. I fully accepted. And look what came through, this new possibility that I could have never predicted, never could have thought that that would happen, ever. And here it was. And it was so beautiful. And I jumped up and down and I'm like dancing and singing and I'm just like, wow, you know? And then it was just such a beautiful moment of validation that everything that I've been doing, trusting myself, trusting the journey, continuing to surrender, continuing to let go, was all worth it. It was all spot on, and just to keep going. And so, yeah, that really changed, you know, so much, you know. And so I wanted to share all of this because I feel, well, obviously it's all miraculous and beautiful. And I think the second piece is a lot of people will ask, oh, so you're still doing that thing? You're still on this journey? I'm like, there's no getting off. Like, this is my life now. Like, this is what I do. You know, this is like who I am. So this whole idea that like I'm gonna stop because it's been a year or 2 years or 3 years. No, like I just keep getting better and better at it, you know? And so I'm so excited, so joyous, so thrilled, so just the possibilities are endless, you know? And I think the biggest takeaway that I would share to anyone looking to trust themselves and trust the universe more is you really have to see everything in your 3D reality as evidence that it's all working, including the contrast, especially the contrast. Because I think what happens is we get so conditioned to think, oh, it's not working because look at all this crap. No, it is working. That's how powerful you are. This is all here for you to overcome. Because in order to create from your high state, everything that you're giving your power to that is against the thing that you truly desire, you have to let that go. And like for me, you know, getting to a place where I had no money and I chose to fast. I mean, look at the gifts that it has given me. Not only that, it has, you know, changed my whole relationship to food and really to everything because, yeah, just I can go on and on about that. The other piece of letting go of my apartment and being able to live the way that I've been living for over a year now has been the most miraculous, transformative, empowering decision I could have ever made. Like, it's the thing that changed the trajectory of my life and changed who I am and changed what I believe is possible. It filled my life and my heart with so much love because look at all these beautiful animals. I mean, I was never even into cats before I started this journey. That's the funny thing. I really wasn't. I was always a dog person. So the fact that the universe is like, we're going to give you cat sit after cat sit is like, I'm obsessed with cats. I got to work on farms. I got to work with another family and I've learned how to cook. I mean, it goes on and on and on. It is incredible. It is incredible. Look what I've done for my body. I've healed myself of eczema. Like, yeah, it's incredible. So, yeah. So there you go. I did the fast. I'm happy with it. Let me know your thoughts on any of the above and just sending you so much love. Continue to trust yourself. I think that's the biggest takeaway. Trust yourself and experiment with your life. Experiment with your life. All right, sending you love.